premier AFC matchup here between two teams who are going to be fighting for the number one seed when it's all said and done. What do we think here? Bills reeling from that loss last week against the Ravens. Texans thrilling victory against the Jacksonville Jaguars there at the very end of the fourth quarter. What do you think the matchup that matters is here for this one?
Yeah, I think it's CJ Stroud specifically on third down, so against Buffalo's third and fourth down defense. Given the fact that CJ Stroud has been really good on third and fourth down, I think he started the first two games of the season. Or the first game of the season rather. He was nine for nine. And then the Buffalo defense ranks 23rd in third down defense. So there's kind of an opportunity there for something that CJ Stroud and the Texans offense does really well against this Buffalo defense, where it's a good defense, but there are a few cracks and a few holes. Now, the caveat to this is the fact that Buffalo is letting up the eighth fewest points. So they're very much a bend, don't break defense right now. And I think that speaks to some of the injuries that they've had and everything, where they are going to give up some yards. They are going to let you kind of go down the field, but they do clamp down when it comes to actual scoring production. So can CJ Stroud, in those obvious passing downs, be effective, continue these drives, move the ball down the field, and then ultimately end in the end zone? So that's my biggest thing here, is which team is going to do that better, because the Bills are also very good on third down offensively. But I think it matters a little bit more with Houston.
Yeah, kind of playing off of that for my matchup that matters. Attacking the Bills linebackers specifically, you saw last week, it felt like the injuries were just sort of too much for Buffalo, and the Ravens were able to just really go at a lot of those players that they're missing. Matt Milano was out, Taylor Rapp was out, Terrell Bernard was out, and it looks like Bernard, I think, could be back this week. But man, you look at the linebackers last week. Bale Inspector, 34.3 overall grade. Dorian Williams, 58.0 overall grade. No Matt Milano, obviously, still. And like I said, Bernard could be back. But if they're not, I think that's a major area where Bobby Slowick is going to look at this defense and say, we got to attack the linebackers. Let's put these dudes in conflict. Let's make them make tackles in open space. Let's try to get them moving with some pre-snap motion, really confuse them with play action. Like, they're going to devise their game plan, in my opinion, around manipulating the Bills linebackers, because it was just such a detriment to their defense last year. So those two guys specifically, against whatever the Texans can cook up on offense, which they've got the receivers to do it. They got a good run game. Obviously, CJ Stroud's fantastic as well. There's a lot of different ways where they can attack this if it remains a weakness for the Bills at the degree it was a weakness for them last week. So to me, Bernard playing or not, I think is a big one in this one. And again, last I checked, I think he might be able to go. But regardless, it's something that Houston's going to look at and game plan around for this one. So how much better they're able to play this week compared to last week, I think it's going to mean a lot. And it's going to be a major matchup for this one. Plus factor for you. What do you got?
In the same kind of vein of who's going to be unavailable for the Buffalo Bills, Von Miller is now suspended. So this kind of puts more of the onus on Greg Rousseau. Now, I know Von Miller was still more of a rotational player, but you have rotational players to keep your guys fresh. And so this just kind of now falls on the depth is now lacking. Greg Rousseau is going to have to be very effective. And the good news is that he's been very effective versus Laramie Tunsil in particular. 164 snaps against each other, 2 sacks allowed by Laramie Tunsil, 3 pressures allowed by Laramie Tunsil going against Greg Rousseau. So there is precedent for this to work out for Greg Rousseau, but I mean, Von Miller and Rousseau both top 15 among edge defenders in the PFF pass rush grade ahead of this week. So this is a significant loss for the Bills pass rush in particular. And again, that onus is now just going to fall on Greg Rousseau to kind of make up for that and stay fresh. And just the stamina is it's gonna come into play here.
I did not realize this, but the Texans are the most penalized team in the NFL. Like,
dude, I think Tunsil, for as much of a veteran as he is, he still incurs so many penalties, and I'm like, bro, what are we doing?
They have 40 penalties against, which is the most in the NFL. They have 326 penalty yards against, which is the third most in the NFL. They have 12 false starts, most in the NFL. And 9 offensive holdings, which is the fourth most in the NFL. So, like, these are offensive holding and false starts are like, okay, some some offensive holdings are like, all right, sometimes it's not really a holding, but other times it's just like, man, like you got to know what you can and can't do here. And so a handful of offensive holdings, like I get, but 9, 12
I
false
know.
starts.
I know that these coaches are eating good at the end of the season with how much they are fining these players for making these penalties. When I was with the Bucks, there was a board in the offensive meeting room, and if you committed a pre-snap penalty, it was tallied on the board. And it came with a set number that was the fine, and all of that fine went into a pot. And at the end of the year, the coaches got to go out to dinner based on what was like dinner or who knows. These Houston coaches are probably taking vacations off of the money that they are
They
collecting.
already got it booked. They already got them booked. They prepaid them.
Seriously. Like absolutely outrageous. Like I said, especially for a guy like Laramie Tunsil who's been in the league forever. Stop false starting.
It's one of those things where it's just, you think that I don't think they're going to be in the top 5 by the time the year is over. Like I think it's going to regress to the mean in a good way for them at some point, but frustrating for them up to this point. And unfortunately, if that doesn't happen, if this continues, then yeah, I mean, this is a major, I would say, not talked about factor that's going to get in the way here of you're going to say like, oh, like what's going to stop the Houston Texans? I guess kind of the Houston Texans in some ways with all of these self-inflicted penalties. So